Good morning, church. I want to talk to you today about a child in time. In the past, I've talked about what I wanted to do when I was growing up about being a fireman, but I've not completely been truthful with you all as to what I used to express as to what I wanted to be when I grew up. As a young person in a class, they always used to ask you this question: what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was always the odd child, who would come out with the questions or the answers that nobody had thought about, and everybody would look at you and thought, you're a bit strange. But when I was asked this question, probably at about the age of 5 or 6, I said, I want to be a father. Everybody else wanted to be a career move, because that's the focus, isn't it? As we grow up, we're taught to be products of the system that wants to get something out of us. And so you are identified with what you do rather than who you are. And for me, I've been blessed with godly parents who've been nothing but an example to us as children growing up and to the grandchildren that have followed afterwards. And I can say this about my father because he's not here today. But when I was a child and I was growing up, in some ways I have to say I idolized my father. I wanted to be just like him. He was kind, he was generous, he was loving, he cared for people in ways that I see very few people showing that example. And I felt as a child that I was loved by my father and my mother. They really cared about me. And so when I'd received such teaching just by the example that who they were, I wanted to follow that example. I wanted to be exactly like him in every way, shape, or form. Now, as you grow up and you move out of the childhood phase, you come into the teenage phase, you start to see your father and your mother in another light, because your friendships become more important than your parent-child relationships. And so I started to see not just the good things in my father, but also the bad things, the things that were not as good, because he's a human being. We all have faults, we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. But when a child starts to perceive the other side of the coin, all of a sudden it's like their world starts to come crashing down. Because those things which they put in place don't seem as stable as they were in the past. Now you're living in the present or in the future, so to speak. But I want to talk about the fatherhood of God. And in the fatherhood of God, there is a stability that goes beyond the human realm. And so when I'm talking about a child in time, I'm talking about the reality that we are born as human beings who are mortal, living in a mortal world. But when God speaks of his covenant with humanity, he's talking about fathering. And we live in a time and a season when I mention the word father, it's a swear word. Fathers are not held in a good light in this day and age. But the truth be known, most people are struggling with an identity crisis because they do not know who their true father is. Fatherhood gives you a sense of identity. And without fatherhood in your life, you struggle with an identity crisis. And the world in this moment is struggling in an identity crisis because it denies the reality that it has been fathered. And it is starting to listen to another being who also claims to be a father, but is not a father of truth. He is a father of lies. So people are basing their lives not on truth, but on a belief system, an idea that's formulated to replace the truth, to deceive people that fatherhood in itself is a lie. But we read in the story of Abraham about the fatherhood of God. And we pick up this story in chapter 11, 27, and we're going to go through to 12, verse 9. But before we go there, there are two scriptures I want to read to you. And I want you to hold these scriptures in mind when you're reading the scriptures that we're going to read at large, because they communicate the heart of the Father. Jeremiah 9, 23 to 26. This is what the Lord says. Let not the wise boast of their wisdom, or the strong boast of their strength, or the rich boast of their riches, but let the one who boasts boast about this, that they have the understanding to know me, that I am the Lord, who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will punish all who are circumcised only in the flesh. Egypt, Judah, Edom, Ammon, Moab, and all who live in the wilderness in distant places, for all these nations are really uncircumcised, and even the whole house of Israel is uncircumcised in heart. And then the second scripture is Matthew 22, 29, 32. Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees, and they're asking them the question about the resurrection, and they're trying to trip him up. And this is what he says: you are in error because you do not know the scriptures or the power of God. At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven. But about the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what God said to you? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. This is a quotation directly from Exodus 3, verse 6, where he starts off that quotation passage with, I am the God of your father. Father. The very mention of that one sentence, because he was talking to Moses at the time. God's presence was with Moses. The very mention, I am the God of your father, and Moses hid his face. He couldn't look at him. He's talking about relationship. Moses, you know about gods. Moses, you've been trained in the best institutions in the world about the gods and power and authority. And all these things that you talk about as being powerful and strong pale into insignificance when I talk to you about relationship, and I talk to you about fatherhood, and I talk to you about the whole idea that holiness does not come from obeying the law. Holiness comes from being in a relationship with that which is holy. Committing yourself to a relationship with God is the means of salvation. The cross in itself has no power if you do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ. The cross is the means, the sign, the symbol. But signs and symbols have no meaning if the heart has not been changed or transformed. Just as Jeremiah said, circumcision alone is not enough. The heart needs to be cut off from the world and the things the world would have you proclaim, and enter into the relationship and understanding of who God is, a God of righteousness, a God of justice, a God of kindness, a God of fatherhood, a God of relationship, a God who loves his children, that he would send his one and only Son to die on a cross, that they may be redeemed into a loving relationship, changed and transformed from the inside outward. What good is a relationship with a marriage if it looks good on the outside but it's rotten on the inside? It's like an episode of Neighbours. Everything looks rosy. Everything looks friendly. Everybody's in such relationship with one another, but there's so many problems going on every week. Yet everybody wants to watch things because of the problems and the issues. There was a newspaper that was produced a while ago that was had the premise, we just want to preach or show good news. It didn't last. Everybody always seems to be turning to the things where we see all the negative things, all the issues, all the problems. It's like what we call car crash TV, isn't it? You know, when you watch YouTube and you see all the people falling over and having accidents, and they seem to be the things that are the most viewed because people, more often than not, they want to see people more miserable than themselves so that they feel good about their own lives. But the truth is, God does not want us to be miserable. He wants us to know that we are loved, and that we are cherished, and that we are fathered. Genesis chapter 11:27. This is the account of Terah's family line. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans in the land of his birth. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was childless because she was not able to conceive. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse. And all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. From there he went on towards the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued towards the Negev. 3 things from this story I want to talk to you about today. The first thing is this: fathered by the Eternal One. The second thing is living in time but not bound by it. And then the third thing is children of the childless. When we look at the first thing, we realize here in the first passage, Genesis 11:27-32, there is a lot of talk about fathers. Terah as a father, Haran as a father. Then we see even with Nahor, the sense that his wife can be pregnant, but she's also a daughter of a father. Then we get to Abraham, and we find that his wife isn't able to give him children. And this is one of the biggest ironic statements that you can find in the text, because if you look at the meaning of the name Abraham, it means exalted father. The exalted father is not able to have children. The exalted father is going around with his own father and his brothers, and there's a comparison being made between those who are fruitful and those who are not fruitful, and seemingly the one who believes in God, the one who hears his voice, the one who has the call of God on his life is the least fruitful. And you could ask yourself the question, why did God choose Abraham? There are other candidates out there that are far better placed. Those who've met the criteria, so to speak. He could have chose Haran, but Haran died. He was left behind in the place of their birth. He didn't move any further. He could have chosen Nahor, who came along with them on the journey and settled in Haran. He was fruitful. He had children. He could have even chose Lot, who went on the journey with him to Canaan as well. And so there we see three analogies in three people, three fathers, so to speak. A father that remains in Ur. A father that goes on the journey so far but stays in Haran. Another father who comes along with him on the journey and is walking around in the land of Canaan. But as we read later on in the text in chapter 13, Lot sees that the land is better just outside the promised land, the land to the east. So there are three types of people who almost fit the criteria for being a father, for being in faith. But although they fit the criteria, they make choices that don't respond to the call. And the first element that we need to understand when we talk about being fathered by the Eternal One is, do you respond to the call of God that is on your life? And I'm not just talking about going into full-time ministry. I'm talking about the reality that we are all kings and priests, a holy nation. We all have a remit to teach, to rule, to bring God's kingdom here on earth. That's why we pray the prayer. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And the priority of that prayer is it starts with me. Do I respond to the call of God in my life, or do I choose to make choices which respond like other people? Am I like Haran, dead and buried? I've never made it even out of the world. Am I like Nahor, who's gone on a journey and I've stayed in my father's household because I like to be in a place of comfort. I like to experience the things that the world has to have, and I need to be secure in my future. Am I like Lot? I go on the journey so far and I'm wandering and I'm listening to the voice of the Spirit, but all of a sudden I'm distracted and I'm starting to follow the things of the world. What does it matter if I lose my soul because I've gained the world? Better to be a doorkeeper in my Father's house than a king of the world. Abraham is not distracted. He's fathered by the Eternal One. Nehemiah verse 9:7 says this, "You are the Lord God who chose Abram, the exalted father, and brought him out of Ur of the Chaldeans, and named him Abraham." There's something prophetic about that, isn't there? That here is this man who's called exalted father. He has no children, and yet God takes him out of the place that he's in and starts to give him the name Abraham, father of a multitude. But he's still not got any children. There's an irony. The promises of God, when they come on our lives, sometimes they come at times and seasons when we don't see ourselves in the place that God sees us. We see it in the story of Gideon. He's hiding away from the Midianites. He's threshing the floor, trying to get something to eat. And the angel of the Lord comes to Gideon and says, "Rise up, you strong and mighty warrior." And Gideon's feeling anything but. Don't choose me. Don't choose me. I need to test all the things that you're doing because I'm not right there yet. But God comes and he speaks into our situation and our circumstance and he says, "I have chose you. I have chose you. Do not doubt who you are and who I have called you to be. It is time for you to rise up. It is time for you to pick up the flag. And it's time for you to declare the word of the Lord in season, in this day, and in this age, regardless what the world thinks of you and who the world says that you should be. For the world wants to keep you under the heel of their boots. But God is the one who has broken the enemy and restored you back to life, that you will be raised up and you will become bold. Not in your own strength, but in the power of the Holy Spirit. For when the Spirit of God is upon me, I am no longer myself. I have become a child of God. And the child of God is more than able to declare the words of God when they line their lives up with God's promises and with God's hope. We are not called to be a people who are hopeless. We are not called to be a people who are afraid. We are not called to be a people who are apologetic of our beliefs and what we stand for. Because at the end of the day, when people are brought before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, it is them that will have to apologize. It is them that will have to bow the knee. It is them that will experience the fear of God. And will ask the question, why did you not speak? Why did you not teach? Why did you not listen to the word of the Lord and go where he told you to go? And to speak when he told you to speak? And to do when he told you to do? And to prioritize his words and his being. And not to just Netflix and chill. Or lose yourself on the World Wide Web. Or find yourself attracted to things which God has called you not to be attracted to. There's too many lots in this world. And not enough Abrahams. God is calling a season for those who will hear his voice and follow his call. We are not to choose God. It is God who has chosen us. Jesus didn't follow after his disciples. His disciples followed after him. And if you weren't ready to keep up, you lost out. It's the story of the bridesmaids, isn't it, really? Who's prepared? Who's ready in season? Who's got the oil in their lamps? Or are we too busy? Sleep. Oh, don't wake me up. Oh, no, the alarm's gone off. No, I need to have another 5 minutes. You know? I'm the problem, you see. In my household, the alarm goes up, I'm like this. Ready, let's go. But when it comes to the end of the day, oh my word, I can't stay up. And the kids, they keep going on and on and on and on. I've got to have coffee, just to stay awake. We've got to play to our strengths, have we not? We've got to support one another. We've got to strengthen one another. We've got to live in this time, but not be bound by this time. Genesis 24, 34 to 36. So he said, I am Abraham's servant. This is a passage, a beautiful passage, where Abraham's concerned for his son Isaac. He doesn't want his son Isaac to marry a worldly woman. He wants his son Isaac to marry somebody who believes in the things that he believes. Why? So that his life will go well for him. And so he sends his servant because Abraham's made a promise to God that he will not leave the land. And when he's left the land in the past, he's had nothing but problems with Egypt. Trying to take his wife. Trying to take his future. Trying to throttle the life out of him. So he sends his servant to go and find a wife for his son. And we find that the blessings of God that were in this passage of 12, chapter 6, have already started to take effect on Abraham's life, because this is what the servant describes Abraham to his family. Can you imagine that reunion? Somebody wondering, where's Abraham gone? He's just wandered off. We've not heard anything from him. Then all of a sudden this servant turns up and he says this, the Lord has blessed my master abundantly, and he has become wealthy. He has given him sheep and cattle, silver and gold, male and female servants, and camels and donkeys. My master's wife Sarah has borne him a son in her old age, and he has given him everything he owns. What a beautiful testimony. Abraham didn't want anything unless God gave it him. Wealth, riches. There were times even in Abraham's life where he was offered by worldly people the opportunity to become rich. But he refused that opportunity and instead tithed to God's priest. And God himself, and he said, the reason why he said it is he said, I don't want you to say that I made Abraham. I want God to say that he made me. That's the testimony of Abraham. He acknowledges the fatherhood of God. He acknowledges the provision of God. He acknowledges the protection of God. He acknowledges the blessing of God. And we find when we talk about covenant, blessings and curses. And the blessings and curses throughout the Bible about covenant has always been, are you in a good relationship with God? Or are you doing your own thing? Are you following his call, or are you choosing what you want to do with your own life? And the blessing was given to those who chose to follow the call. Follow God. The curse was received when they turned down another path. I don't know about you, but the good things that happened in my life have been when I've listened to God. And I've done what he's wanted me to do. And then the curses in my life have been when I've started to do things my own way. Lord, forgive me. Forgiveness is key. It's powerful. But here is Abraham. He's talked to by the Lord, and the Lord says to him in Genesis 12, 1-6, go from your country your people, your father's household, to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. The dominant theme in this particular passage is I will. I will. The testimony of Abraham is not what he does in his own strength. It's not about what Abraham has achieved. We go back again to Jeremiah where he says, "Let not the wise boast of their wisdom, or the strong boast of their strength, or the rich boast of their riches. But let the one who boasts boast about this, that they have the understanding to know me, that I am the Lord, who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on the earth." In the Bible, it talks about Moses and it talks about Jesus being meek. Often people associate meekness with being mild or being weak. It's not the truth. Meekness is about power. It's about strength. It's about understanding when you try to do things in your own strength, in your own power, in your own might, in your own way, that's when you're being weak. But when you allow God to do things for you, that's when you become powerful. In my weakness, you have made me strong. In my foolishness, you have made me wise. In my poverty, you have made me rich. In my childlessness, you have made me a father. This is the story of Abraham. He wasn't reliant on his own strength. He wasn't reliant on his own capability, but he was reliant on the word of God. And in this way, he was living in time, but he was not bound by time. He went from his country. He went from his people. He went from his father's household to a land where he was unknown. All the things in his day and age that would make you powerful and strong, he turned his back on and walked in the other direction. If you want to feel empowered, you would live in your own country. If you want to feel like you've got people around you and that you're strong, you live in your own community. We also know the power of family bonds, don't we? But when God tells you to go, you go. Leaving all these things behind, he went. And as a result, God blessed him, made him into a nation of his own. He had no country. God made him a country. He had no blessing because he had left those who had the power to bless him behind. But God blessed him. His name was unknown where he went. He left the name behind where people knew who he was and knew what he was capable of. God made him known. You know, blessing is an important thing. Often we don't realize the reality that you can only bless somebody if you have power. Sometimes I find it really ironic that people say that they're going to bless the Lord. That song, "Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul." So am I God? Am I the one in power? It is God who blesses us. And a result of him empowering us, we have the ability to empower others and bless others. And this was the concept that was being made. God was saying to Abraham, the truth be known, if you trust in me, you will come to understand that I am more than able to fulfill my promises in your life. You're not bound by time. You're transformed. But ultimately, it leads to the greatest blessing. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Acts 3:22-26 says this: "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your own people." This is Moses speaking, or Stephen speaking the words of Moses. "You must listen to everything he tells you. Anyone who does not listen to him will be completely cut off from their people. Indeed, beginning with Samuel, all the prophets who have spoken have foretold these days. And you are heirs of the prophets and of the covenant of God made with your fathers. He said to Abraham, 'Through your offspring, all peoples on earth will be blessed.' When God raised up his servant, Jesus, he sent him first to you, to Israel, to bless you by turning each of you from your wicked ways." We know the result of this speech meant that Stephen lost his life. We also, it's Peter who said that thing, but Stephen says the next one in Acts 7:3-8. "Leave your country and your people," God said, "and go to the land I will show you." So he left the land of the Chaldeans and settled in Haran. After the death of his father, God sent him to this land where you are now living. He gave him no inheritance here. This is what we're talking about, children of the childless. If you seek your inheritance in the here and now, you'll have no inheritance in the here and after. If you put all your focus into the present, you will have no future. If you seek to do what makes you happy, you will be filled with sorrow and sadness in the life that is to come. Abraham understood it's not about the here and now. It has to be about a future. He did everything for the next generation. He didn't seek to be selfish for his own good, his own happiness. He was a father, and fathers look to the future. They seek for their children to come to a place greater than they ever inherited for themselves. They weren't skiers. Have you ever heard that phrase? A skier is somebody spend the kid's inheritance. They say that at the boomer community, that quite a lot of them are not living for those who come after them. They're spending the money for themselves now, because they're enjoying their own life. They're neglecting the future for the sake of the present. But they don't understand that there's a price to pay in the future. If you live for now, you won't enjoy the future. Abraham understood this. He had no inheritance, not even ground to set his foot on, but God promised him that he and his descendants after him would possess the land. And even though at the time Abraham had no child, God spoke to him in this way: "For 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, says God. And afterwards they will come out of that country and worship me in this place." Then he gave Abraham the covenant circumcision. So Abraham has the promise that God is going to make him into a great nation. Then Abraham has the sign. And it's only after he has the promise and the sign that he then has the children. The future. Becomes a father. we were to look at the promises in today's world. God has promised us that those who turn from their sin, from their selfish ways, follow after Christ, be baptized, be repentant of their sins, receive the person of the Holy Spirit because of what Jesus has done on the cross. The cross is the sign of God's covenant, just as circumcision was the sign of God's covenant to Abraham. We have a new sign. We have new promises. And if we receive the promises, if we receive the sign, God has given us a future. It's of this that Hebrews talks of in 11:8-16. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go to a place he would later receive as inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land, like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and countless as the sand on the seashore. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were still foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had the opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Galatians 3:7-14. Understand then that those who have faith are children of Abraham. Scripture foresaw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith and announced the gospel in advance to Abraham. All nations will be blessed through you. So those who rely on faith are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. For all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse, as it is written, cursed is everyone who does not continue to do everything written in the book of the law. Clearly, no one relies on the law is justified before God, because the righteous will live by faith. The law is not based on faith. On the contrary, it says the person who does these things will live by them. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who is hung on a pole. He redeemed us in order that the blessing given to Abraham might come to the Gentiles through Christ Jesus, so that by faith we might receive the promise of the what? The Spirit. Children of the childless. God has birthed in us a new spirit. The born-again experience. How will one inherit the kingdom of God? One must be born of water and of spirit. We talk about the baptism, the going through the waters when we saw that with Noah. Now when we talk about Abraham, we talk about the inheritance that comes through a relationship with God and not trying to do things in your own strength, but believing that he is more than able to do his promises. Trusting him. And in trusting him, receiving and becoming an heir of that promise. Through the person of the Holy Spirit indwelling in us. We can have a relationship with God. And we have the guarantee that we will be restored, renewed, resurrected. Because the Spirit is the guarantee of life. Jesus replied, he is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Moses said, well, listen to God, I am the God of your father. And he hid his face. Shall we stand? I'm going to ask David if he'd come forward. I asked him whether he knew the song. He said he'd only play it if I sang it, so I'm going to sing it. Excuse me in advance. I ask that you sing along with me so that I'm not deafening you all. It's a famous song that I want us to sing in conclusion. I just want to slightly change the words of this song. It says, I need you more than yesterday. I need you more than words can say. I want to change it from need to love. I love you more than yesterday. I love you more than words can say. For in a relationship with God, that's where our security comes from. I love you more than words can say. I love you more than anything. I love you more than ever before. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. More than the air I breathe, more than the song I sing, more than the next heartbeat, more than anything. And Lord, as time goes by, I'll be by your side. For I never want to go back to my old life. I love you more than words can say. I love you more than anything. I love you more than ever before. I love you, Lord. I love you. Just tell him how much you love him. Tell him how much you care. He is more than able to empower you, to strengthen you. But know that your security can only come from loving him and allowing him to love you. Forgive us, Lord, for the times we've loved other things more than we loved you. Show us, Lord, how much you truly love us. For we know who you are and what you've done. We celebrate you and you alone. Come into our lives, Lord. Dwell in us. Have the right to reign in us. Teach us to be like Abraham. Make us into fathers and mothers, that we will bring forth a new generation that might know you and have an identity. Lord, let us not be afraid of those who are unlovable, and teach them just like us, they can be loved. Show them how to live their lives in a godly way, not through our own strength, but through the power of your Spirit, Lord. Teach our children how to pray, how to love you, how not to be distracted by the rubbish that's going on the internet, but seek true treasure that's hidden in the field. We pray all this in your mighty name, Jesus, who showed us how to love. In Jesus' name, Amen. Amen, people.